items have actually gone higher. We've all seen it. Just right before you. Because none of you is 15 or 20 here, apart from these kids. At least some of you are over 20 years here. So even in the last 10 years, you can see how things have done what? They've moved. You don't even want to talk about the number of jobs that have been lost in the last 5 years. So who is happy in Nigeria today? Some people are happy. It's working for them. But if you don't want to talk about fuel for those who have cars or those who have the need to actually use fuel, because one way or the other, there's no electricity, so you have to buy fuel. We're battling and struggling with 135 per liter. Today is over what? 600 naira. So there is darkness, and I just want us to recognize that there is darkness in the world. No, let's Nigeria. There's darkness what? In Nigeria. And everything the scripture says is actually coming to pass. And that's why will we be instructed to be the light of the world if there isn't darkness? So if there is light, there is no need to be what? There's no need for light. Do we need light in this place now? Except if folks with the media, maybe because of certain specifications, they need more light. But we can all see each other because something is illuminating in this place. So we live in a world of darkness. And when I mean darkness, I don't mean it, because you know Christians, when you hear darkness, you think it's something diabolical, something spiritual. No. Come down from that realm. I'm using darkness to symbolize bad leadership, bad governance, and the hardship that we face as a people. You don't want to talk about salt, because we all know this. We're the light and we're the salt of the earth. But what are the expressions of this in everyday life? Doesn't mean you should become literal salt. But like my brother said, that is something that we have that the world what? Yeah. What's the second verse that we learn as children who are growing up? That is adjacent. You're the light of the world and the salt of the earth. It's also in the book of Matthew. No. Let your light so what? So shine what? Before what? Before what? Before men, that they may see what? Your good works, and do what? Glorify your Father who is in heaven. Let your light so shine before men that they may see what? Your good works. And if you interpret that, it's a call. Because if you look through scripture, one of the things that we've been requested to do is to be active citizens in society. Because as active citizens, that is when we demonstrate the light that we carry and the salt that we are. And he says the world, he says, let your light so shine before men that what? That the world may do what? This space isn't the world. The world is out there. So how you relate with people, how you relate with society matters a lot. And so one way to show your light is to get active in how society is governed. Because if you now go to the book of Proverbs chapter 29, does someone know what that scripture says? When the righteous rule, what happens? And when the wicked, people what? People suffer. It's simple. The Bible is clear. It's clear. So if we are suffering in Nigeria today, the chances that we are being ruled by wicked people is very high. It's very high because so if we don't understand this and make this our guiding light, there is no way our society is going to change. Because the Bible is clear that if the righteous rule, what happens? The people rejoice. The reason why the people rejoice is because righteousness exalts what? A nation. But sin is what? Is a reproach. So if you don't have righteous people who are, one, taking decision about how our money is spent, what it is spent on, and how they account for it. It's very simple. And unfortunately, you don't have a board here because I wanted to draw something. No, we don't have the time. I'm looking at time. Let me tell you a story and tell me who is this person. So there was this lady, very, to a large extent, smart, brilliant, somehow was appointed into a high office. Well, through her trajectory, she's been appointed in a public office. She got appointed into a very high position in the land, and had gone to testify about God's goodness upon her life and how God uplifted her. To God's glory. But she assumed office. And after a few months, she was suspended. She was suspended because of a corruption scandal. And what was it? She directed that 585 million or so be paid into a personal account. And then also took ESTA code for flights to a state that never had airports. Who is this person? Who is this person? I told you people I'm the controversial one and the troublemaker. So we have to say these things the way they are. Better Edu. Is Better Edu a Muslim? Is Better Edu a Christian? Yeah, I don't mean the sophisticated. Let's not be too righteous here. She's a Christian, we know she's a Christian. Right? Now, let's use Better Edu as a case study. Because I have 3 case studies. If the injunction from the Bible was that we should be the salt and the light of the world. If the injunction is that when, and think about it, and the Bible makes no mistake. It says, when the righteous rule. Assuming if you're a staff in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and you are a Christian, and this actually pops up, how would you feel as a fellow Christian? And where you have non-Christians there. Because the whole concept, and I didn't want us to go into defining what Christians are, is to be what? Is to be Christ-like. Is to be like what? Like Christ. If Jesus will be in that position, will he take 300 and something thousand naira for flights to a place where there are no airports? And that, by the way, that's where Sam comes from. They don't have airports in their states. But yet, someone is taking money for flight tickets. And so when my sister talks about the people who are in politics, she's actually right. Because that's not a good example of what we have been asked to do as those who belong to the body of Christ. Are we together? Am I making any sense?
Yes, sir.
So when you think about, politics, we have, thank you very much, we actually, Sam says walk is a command. Politics is our purpose. You may not agree. But how I have come to define politics is the way the world defines it. But politics is our purpose. That because we have been called to transform our society. And if we use kingdom principles to govern, if we use kingdom principles to govern, we'll be in a better place. We'll be in a better place. So even you as a citizen who refuses to obey the law, there's no difference between you and Beta Edu. If you break the law, but the fruit of the Spirit is what? Peace, patience, kindness, what? Long suffering. You see, because if you say go into the world, own it, subdue it, what does that mean? Do you think even God was not interested in politics? He actually played politics. And go and check the book of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. Go and check how all the kings in the Bible evolved. To an extent, if you go to a place in 2 Samuel, I think somewhere in 2 Samuel chapter 1 or so, if you read chapter 1, 2, and 3, you discover that even before David was anointed as king, there was a bit of consultation and consensus. Because God was opposed to people forcing themselves on his people. So go and check that God is actually interested in leadership recruitment, both in society. And if you go somewhere in the New Testament where it says all leadership is inspired by God. So God is actually interested. So we are called to be politicians. But the kind of politics that we've been called to do is a one that transforms society, advances justice, but also helps us fulfill the three duties that we owe. First, we owe a duty to God. Second, we owe a duty to the state. That's where we come from. And the third duty we owe is to our neighbors. There are three duties that we owe. And if you're conscious of this, then if your country is burning, you'll be worried for the future of your country. And our country is in flames. And prayer, again, this is a bit controversial. You may not like it, but I have to say it. No, let me not say it, because you might misinterpret what I'm going to say. Because I'm being very careful and intentional. But that's what we've been called to do. But you know, and I'll talk about different ways that we can participate in politics, and that's where I'll conclude. But even if the righteous were ruling, it is no guarantee that we will have effective governance. It's no guarantee. So you can be the most spiritual person. By the way, if you check history, the most spiritual people somewhat have tended to be bad. Because it's not enough. You need to learn leadership. You need to learn governance. You just have to. So being spiritual, being firebrand is not enough. You cannot pray governance into existence. You just can't. Because if everything we've been called to do is to just pray, then the injunction that we should be light and salt of the earth, the injunction that we should love our neighbor like we love ourselves, the injunction that when the righteous rule, and the way the righteous rules is by what? Is by being active in community, wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been. So those of you who are running from politics because it's dirty, it's this, who told you it was ever going to be clean? So tell me what is it on earth that is clean? Give me and I'll tell you why. I'll give you one example that it's not clean, including the church. Give me one thing that it's clean. You say, okay, politics. The brother there said, in politics there's a lot of, let's say, what are the dirty things? What are the things? What? Bribery. There's bribery, eh? There's what? There's killings, yeah? There's vote buying. What else? There's what? Toggery, eh? There's what? Rituals. Okay, thank you. So, let's look at the church. Tell me all these things that you mentioned. Which one is not in the church? In today's church? Rituals? Rituals not in the church? Ha. She's not aware. Oh no, we need to update you. So you don't know that rituals are in church? There are rituals in church. How many? All you need to do is just look around you. Just look around you and see the strange things that actually happen in what we call churches. Sometimes you don't know what's the difference between a traditionalist and a so-called man of God. Because there's no difference. So there's ritual. Let me not say some things that will put me in trouble here. But everything we've said. So one of the things people talk about in politics and say, oh yeah, there's a lot of betrayal, there's a lot of, is it in the church that you don't have that? Huh? Thank you, my sister. But what does that tell you? That the problem isn't politics. The problem is actually we, the people. It's not, let's not blame politics. It's the people. It's how we've chosen to do it. Because we are a wicked people, including all of us here. The only difference is we have been saved. But if they take salvation out, some of you here will be more terrible than those who are out there. It's by what? Then that's the value of grace. Because every human being has got a criminal instinct. The tendency as a human being to do evil. It's there. What I'm saying is, it's strange. You all know these things. Again, it's a hard truth. But the only difference is that we have been saved by what? By grace. And that's why on a constant basis we continue to beckon on God to give us what? The grace. Because left for the flesh, we will be beasts. Because it's the human nature. And since the fall, greed is in our blood. Greed is in our blood. But the only reason why we've come above that is because through grace, God has helped us defeat the flesh. And this is why we're in constant battle with the flesh. In constant battle with the flesh. And we want to win. All the struggles of this life is, how do we win the battle of the flesh? So that when the master comes, he will find us what? Worthy to go with him. And the reason why we are battling with the flesh, it's because it is the devil's intention to ensure we don't fulfill the purpose for which we have been called. Because if you fulfill the purpose, and in this case, participation in politics is a purpose. If the righteous rules and the people are happy, look at this. If the righteous rules and the people are happy and righteousness reigns, the devil will have no resting place. He will have no followers. Because he comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. If you don't give him the space, he'll be unhappy. And that's why we're in that constant battle. And so, those of you who are Puritans, say, oh no, do not be unevenly yoked with unbelievers. And we think politics is for unbelievers. Or politics as a purpose is for evildoers. No, it isn't. Because politics isn't just about running for office. Which is where I'm going to conclude. About how can we get politically active. And I hope that this entire program ignites a fire for transformation in Nigeria. that you no longer become a bystander. Because if you remain a bystander, the wicked people would always prevail. And that's what's happening. You know, Christians say all they know how to do is to pray and pray and pray. I'm not saying don't pray. Yes, prayer is a declaration of dependence on God. But God has given us everything that we need. Everything that we need, He has given us. He's given us the numbers. He's given us the people who have the capacity. He's given us access to be educated, to learn and have what it takes. He's giving some people even money. But no, politics is for the world. It's not for us. And my brothers and sisters, politics is not for the world. Politics is actually for the church. Because it's what we have been called to do. When they say all creation waits for the manifestation of God, is it manifestation in your house? It's manifestation in the world. And we manifest by how we participate in politics. And how do we participate in politics? A lot of you actually know that. But let me start with the foundation. Be informed. Be informed. That's the first place you start from. If you go through the scripture, I think it was somewhere in Hosea where he says, my people do what? They perish for what? You know, when we're growing in school, Sam and I were in the same church in Bauchi. You know, do they still do these things where, for people who have kids, where they teach them memory verses? Do they still do that? They do it. Yeah. It's very good. It's very good because it provides a very solid foundation of our understanding of Scripture. I know we sing this thing, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And what? Lack of knowledge and what? Huh? Okay, it's actually lack of knowledge. I'm trying to extend it by putting wisdom. But let me take that back. My people perish for lack of knowledge. It's the truth. We perish for lack of knowledge. We don't spend time to acquire knowledge and information. There's no way you can fulfill this purpose. There's no way you can be the salt and the light of the world if you don't understand the world itself. So if you want to be politically active, there's no way you can do that without understanding the world. And the world is, what is this whole thing called the Nigerian state? What are the institutions? How is power shared? Why do we have elections? Why are some people appointed? Blah, blah, blah. Since we are in church, well, no, since we are, whatever we are, how many of you have seen, no, how many of you own a constitution? Our constitution, how many of you? There are only 3 of you. 3 of you in this place that own the Nigerian constitution. Only 3 of you. You see why the church is a problem? No, let me not use church. You see why you Christians are the problem? Because how do you manifest? How? How do you manifest? Because you need to know when, how, and where to manifest. You need to know where and the time to actually do what? Show and shine the light and be the salt. So be informed. You don't even need to buy the Constitution. It's online. You can have access to it. Know the Constitution. When you see discussions, ask yourself, what does the Constitution say? It starts with understanding your country. So be informed. And we perish because there's no information. Well, like what you always find with the National Assembly, and the legislators will always complain. So let me ask us, what's the function and the role of the National Assembly or our legislators? Can someone tell me? They make laws. What else? They what? They checkmate the executive. What else? Yeah, that's also part of checkmating. What else? You see why Christians are the problems. And let me tell you why. The third responsibility is the one of representation. Huh? Because they are representing you. And let me ask you a further question. Can someone tell me how many persons represent you in this entire country? 3. Who are they? State government. 3. Okay. Any other? How many? You say? How many represent you? 4 or 5. Can you list them? Your local government chairman. Great. Brilliant. Every Nigerian, so that includes you in this place, you are represented by close to 5 or 6 people, depending on whether elections are conducted in where you come from. So let's start from the lowest level, which my brother talked about. You are represented by a counselor. The question to everyone here is, do you know your ward and do you know your counselor? That's one. The second, you are represented by a local government chairman in places where elections are conducted. I'm sure, of course, you know your local government, but do you know your local government chairman where elections are conducted? The third level is you're represented by a member of your state house of assembly. Because in the states, we have state houses of assembly. So all of you here, there's somebody who is in your state house of assembly who is representing you and who is taking decisions on your behalf. The big question is, do you even know this person who is taking those decisions? That's 3. You now have your governor, right? Who is voted by virtue of popular vote. So that's how many? 4. These are 4 people, and these 4 people are in your state. The other 3 are not in your state, but they come from your state. And that's why you said one of them is what? In the House of Reps. So that's 5 people who are representing you. Then you have the Senate, that's 6. And you have the President, what? 7. So only you, every Nigerian, as long as you're a Nigerian, you are represented by 7 people. And these 7 people are voted into power. And the big question is, do you know these people? And that's where being informed actually comes from. You've got to know this. Because if you're going to manifest, if you're going to fulfill that call to be salt and light of the world in politics, then you've got to know these people. So that's one. The second one, which I probably won't talk much about, is about running for office. This is the one people don't love to hear. But you see, the scripture is clear. if the righteous rules, people will what? Be happy and rejoice. The only way the righteous can rule when it comes to this aspect of politics, you have to run for office. But you can't run for office if you don't what? If you are not informed. Because you also need to know the elections, what are the qualifications, what do you need. So please run for office. But before you run for office, which takes me to the next level, you need to join a political party. This is the most controversial one Christians don't want to hear. Say political parties are full of bandits. And they are old, people who, if you want to answer the call to shine your light, it's going to be in the political parties. The reason why evil prevailed is because good people are doing nothing. We are busy praying. Prayer is good, but my dear friends, it takes more than prayer. It's the same way you say faith without works is what? So stay on faith and don't work. Or why we're just sharing the sort of nuggets in the last presentation? You think you will know those things by just being prayerful. I don't know. Maybe Samuel, you know this better. You think you know all of these things about the unwritten codes in workplaces by just praying. No. Even in the scripture, it says, show yourself what? Proof. Show that there's a place for learning. There's a place for learning. So learn and learn these things. The other one is voting. Christians, vote. Because it's scriptural. It's a call. It's a purpose to vote. You don't vote, yet you want your candidate to win. How is he going to win? Or how is she going to win? There's an assumption from the last elections that most Christians were obedient. It's an assumption. By the way, I am not obedient. Neither was I beatified or articulated. None of them. Yes, I didn't vote because by nature of my work, I couldn't vote. Yeah, but God understands. But for those of you who are obedient, so let me talk to you. You wanted your candidates to win. Huh? You didn't come out to vote for your candidate. You came. So only, is it 6 million or so? People. No, actually, not 6 million, about 5. No, Atiku was 6 point something. Obi was it, there was a difference of, was it a million plus? Yeah, because Tinubu was 8.6, thereabout. Then there was a 2 million, then it was. But the only way your candidate can win is if you come out. But let's assume let's even say that assumption was real, that majority of Christians. Think about the number of Christians you have. Think about the number of Christians in the country. But because majority, so two things would have happened. There's some Christians that don't support Obi, right? So maybe that could have been responsible for the outcome, which is the truth. Because I know even some of you from your faces, you didn't like Obi. But vote, the point is you've got to vote at elections if you want your candidates to win. And I say this advisedly, that the basis for voting shouldn't be the religious affiliation of an individual. The basis for voting should be based on certain standards and criteria, and whether the person actually meets those criteria. Because, my dear brothers and sisters, politics determines everything. This is why we can't fold our hands as citizens and say we cannot be active. You think that this rising cost of commodities in the market is not linked to politics? It is. And I always use this practical illustration, that it is some of the decisions that our leaders have made. Some good, some bad. Just think about it. One man, on the day of his inauguration, he just said, and by the way, that pronouncement was not contained in his speech. He only said what? Subsidy is gone. Few hours later, those of you who were in Abuja, what happened? There was what? It was just a pronouncement by one man. And that man could make that pronouncement because of what? Because he was voted in. So there's consequence for any decision that we take. So if for those who didn't show up to vote, maybe if they had showed up, maybe he wouldn't have won the election. Maybe someone else. And maybe someone else could have handled it differently. But the point is, there's consequence for any political decision that we make. And we have to be very careful when we make those political decisions. The other point is your community service. Community service is also one way to be politically active. You must not not everyone is going to join political parties. But within your community, how are you volunteering? How are you, supporting different causes in your community? In your community, there are a lot of NGOs, there are groups. You can volunteer, to support a particular cause. Is it environment? Is it child's rights? Is it education? There are several things you can do within your own community to contribute to the development of your community. That's also political participation. So when we say politics and participation, we don't necessarily mean just running for office. The last point I'll make is about using your voice as a citizen. How are you using your voice to demand accountability? You walk in a place where there isn't accountability, and you keep quiet and say you're praying. You're praying for, it's good to pray, but if you see, they say see something, say something, and do something. So let me employ that. Sometimes asking the difficult questions is part of being the light. It's part of contributing to political accountability. And if you think you're just a lone voice, are you calling other people and having discussions about these issues? At the end of the day, everyone does have a place. But the examples that we have, the terrible examples that we have in public space, is very disturbing. There's one character that we're told forged the president's signature. The other one, they said, even him too, they said we printed, how much do we spend in printing the new notes? Wait, this morning. The amount of we are so wicked as a people. And what's the person's name? What's the name? Because sometimes I agree with people. The problem is not like Christians are not involved in politics. What those people who are in politics, who are Christians, are doing. the atrocities that this man, the former CBN governor, committed. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. But some of you said politics is dirty. Let this man finish. Perhaps in his church he'll be sitting in front. Thank you very much. Yes. He had a Bible, you know. A red Bible. Because we serve a merciful God who, it's not in our place to determine who he shows mercy or not. But these are practical things that we relate with, as a people. And I'm using these examples to tell you these are Christians. That they are Christians who have been in positions. And what they have done does not help the whole cause of this purpose that we fulfill. But those are bad examples. It doesn't mean there are no good examples. There are lots of good examples. Right? In the faith. I'm trying to get one, but it's not coming. It doesn't mean they don't exist. But please don't let these bad stories discourage you from being politically active. Politics is purpose. Politics is our calling. And I hope that with these few points of mine, first, I have done what you asked me to do. And secondly, that for those two brethren who were on the fence, I hope I've not succeeded in making you fall the other way, but I've tried to bring you back. But where is that slide that you used? Yes. Can you go back to that slide on the age? On age. Now let me ask a question. How many of you are in full employment? Now, wow. See, let me tell you something. When I ask this question, please raise your hand again. Watch, just hold on. If you look at the hands, it's only this gentleman's hand that's higher than all your hands. And when I look at the women, all your hands were on the same level. Please, learn to show up boldly and confidently. Especially for women. Often women are always playing, you try to be nice. Don't. Be very, very, trying to use my words carefully. But be bold and confident when you show up. Be bold and confident when you show up. There's a reason why I asked this question. And since those of you raised your hand, unfortunately you cannot be part of what I'm going to say. But someone make this, some of you, how many of you are here? Only, when you said you were here, I had to look at you again. But how many of you are here? How many of you are here? How many of you are here? Looks like majority of you are here. I just want to emphasize something here. I'm begging you by the mercies of God, those of you who are here, I beg you, do anything you can do. Anything you can do to live a fulfilling life before you get here. I beg you, do anything you can do. You see this place? I'll tell you the truth. Take it or leave it. You shouldn't be sleeping here. I'm being very honest with you. You shouldn't be sleeping here. You should pursue self-development with the kind of militancy that Professor Woye Soyinka talks about. Pursue it here. Please. Like we started, that there's something that we have that others don't have. See, when you come here, say it's midlife crisis. You guys are laughing. You think it's a joke. But I'm being very honest with you. When you come here, life is different. And I'll give you just two. One. You see here, you have a lot of energy. I'm saying don't sleep here. I don't mean don't rest. But I mean you should spend most of your time investing in yourself and being ambitious. Set the highest goals that you can set in this life here and walk towards it. Because when you come here, one, your health is going to have a toll on you. Two, the distractions that will come, you would not have the bandwidth to manage them. And if you don't make all the necessary investment here, you see, for the rest of this, you'll be begging and you'll be suffering. Because what you do here determines whether at this point you can maintain this equilibrium between 36 and 45. If you want to acquire education qualifications, do that here. The clarity that you will get when you are here is what will help you get here. Yeah. For a lot of people, when they miss it here, when you miss it here, you retrogress. Because when you are here, you are being taught so many things. So you retrogress rather than progress, where you become an expert in whatever you're doing and people are making reference to you. So when Samuel actually brought this, I'm very glad he brought this. This is a life secret that will help you. Regardless of your background. Please do what you can here to be impacted. Where's the next slide? No, the books.
Oh, okay.
So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you who say you are in full employment. So it means at the end of the month you have salaries. Therefore, there is no freebies for the 5 of you. But for the rest of you, I've never read these books. I read books. But I don't read these types of books. I have them in my library, but I read more political books. I read books, but this is Sam's field. This one will be my own. But they're very good. So I can't even speak to these books, but since he's referenced it, what I'm going to do is I'll coordinate with Sam. For the rest of you who are not in employment, depending on the availability, we can get you 2 of these books. Each of you will have 2 of these books. No, if you are in employment, no. We already know the 5 of you. But for the rest of you, I think what you need to do is at the end of the day, you can pick the top 2 that you would want, and then I'll work with Sam to see how we will get these books across. Well, he will get the books across to you as part of our contribution to supporting this. But thank you. Well, it depends. So the kind of books that I read, one is I read autobiographies of political leaders. And I read the ones for Nigeria. And I say, in terms of being informed, I try as much as possible. If any former leader or any leader in public publishes a book, I'll try to get a copy of the book. And the reason why I do so, it helps me understand how our leaders are thinking and the kind of leadership decisions they make while in office. If you want to understand Nigeria's politics, just read some of those biographies. I've read Jonathan's books. He read Obasanjo's books. I've read El-Rufai's Accidental Public Service. And then there are just a lot of them. But you can. Now, if you want to, and then I also read books that are in my research area. So things like law, politics, and elections. Those are the kinds of books that I read. But if you want, I may maybe send you a reading list. Yes. If you want to, I can put together a reading list and then also read some stuff about Africans' politics. Those are the kinds of things that I do. I don't know if you have any questions. We do question and answers now. Okay, I don't know how you want to do it, but I hope that this has been very useful for you. And I'm glad that I didn't take 2 hours. Oh, okay. Why is this? What's this? Okay. Yes. After starting for let's start.
Questions? Can you just put up your hands so we can? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Any other? 5. That's for the both speakers we've had already.
Yeah. Oh, it's for both? Yes.
Yes, please. Sir, please have a seat. Okay, so we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. My name is Francis. I appreciate your insight and your words of encouragement. My question is, what is the possibility that we will not get compromised in the process of going to the politics, participating in the politics? Because it's very dangerous outside there. Thank you.
What's the possibility? The possibility is high. And the question is, what's the possibility that if you even go outside here, you would not be compromised? The point I'm trying to make is, don't think about politics as a different world. Think about politics as the world out there. It's the world out there, right? You don't need to be in politics to be compromised. You can be compromised in your workplace. You can be compromised in your family. You can be compromised in your school. You can be compromised amongst your friends. So there's compromise everywhere. And I talked about the fact that we battle and we wrestle against the flesh. The flesh in politics is not the flesh in other parts of human endeavor. It's the same thing. That's what I want you guys to appreciate. That politics is society. It's about societal relationships. But there are spiritual things you can do to prevent yourself from being compromised. And I ask you, how do you prevent yourself from being compromised in your interaction with people? It's the same thing. I think 3 things. 1, do not negotiate your values. Do not negotiate your values. People should relate with you by insisting on those values. The second, right, in terms of how you ensure, you need discipline. It takes discipline to stand. And I tell you, go and ask, political leaders who have gone into politics and ask them about their experiences and tell you the kind of compromises that they had to make. It's not easy, no doubt. But if I know the Bible very well, God didn't tell us it was going to be any easy. That's why one of the fruits of the Spirit is perseverance, is long suffering. Because we're in a dark world. So there is nothing that is easy. So also see this as one of them. You just need the discipline and the stamina to withstand it. And you do so by talking with people, right? The other point on how you ensure you stay true is have an accountability group that you always check on each other. Anybody who tells you you will not fall is lying to you. But the question is not how you fall, but what you do when you fall. And this is why to be in constant relationship with yourself, in constant interaction with the Spirit, is important. And if you call on Him, commit your ways to Him and trust Him, He will guide. But when I talk to Christians who want to go into politics, I try as much as possible to bring it as to the lowest level so they can appreciate that these things are practical. It's as simple as if you're going to run for office, make it a cardinal policy that you would not engage in violence. And nobody should attack anyone on your behalf. You're running for office. You say you would never pay anybody. You will never buy votes. But it doesn't mean when you go for meetings, you will not give people refreshment. No. You call people for meetings in your constituency, you will not give them refreshment because you know they give shishi. Even the person who says they give shishi, he gives refreshment. Who say he doesn't give shishi? But what he was actually saying is, I'm not going to buy votes because I want to force myself to lead people. And you have to be clear about your principles. Don't only speak it, practice it, because people are watching.
Thank you, sir, for your session. I have only one question. How do we deal as Christians with election results rigging, and what should be our response to that?
How do you deal with it? So it depends. One, accept it. Accept it. So let's say rigging, and it depends. And by the way, I will explain what I mean. One, when you say how do you deal with election rigging, so assuming, let's bring it down. Assuming in your polling unit, they finish counting and you discover there's some manipulation, right? And usually when elections are rigged at the polling units, there are people who that the outcome is their goal. They are supporters of that candidate who is rigging. So the riggers will do anything to protect that particular outcome. The reason why I say you should accept it is, one, dead people don't share reports. Because if you decide, and that's this whole spirit of discernment that we must always have. If you go on the day of, you see them rigging and you go into their midst and say they must stop this rigging, they must stop this rigging. and somebody just stabs you from the back, or someone, harms you, you will not die a martyr. You will not die a martyr. Because these guys don't have regards for human life. And you need to understand this. Because elections are war. So accept it. But you can file a report later. Now, as a voter, can you file a report of election manipulation and it will lead to an outcome? The answer is yes and no. So, if elections are rigged and you have evidence to show that they are rigged, the victim, right, you can share that evidence with whoever is challenging the outcome and leave it there as part of your own contribution. Because in actual fact, if there is a rigging in an election, the way our electoral process is structured, voters cannot challenge the outcome of elections. The only people who can challenge outcomes of elections are political parties and candidates, because they are the actual participants in the election. As a voter, you cannot do that. The best you can do is to engage in the court of public opinion, not in the court of law. But as a voter, you can serve as a witness, right? So if you go beyond submitting that evidence and you want to serve as a witness in court, then you can do that. I think the last thing is you can expose it. And this is where social media plays a critical role. So assuming if as Christians in all the polling units there's some manipulation, we have evidence of it, and we put it out there, a constellation of this sort of evidence can actually lead to some measure of reforms. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. So, I have one question for you, sir. What's the process of joining? How can I join a political party? And sorry, I'll have to ask all the questions because I'm pressed for time. So the second question I have is, if you find yourself in a toxic environment, sir, how do you deal with it? Because sometimes you don't know. You think you're going for what you want, and then you actually land in a very, very toxic environment. So how do you deal with it? How do you go against all the gossips, all the issues, yes, manipulations? How do you stay you and still pursue what you have to do? Thirdly, these times that we are now, there's more struggle to stay afloat. The struggle to stay afloat has kind of blurred the lines of pushing for your career and stuff like that. So how do you navigate it to not just go for something that pays the bills, than just stay and be looking for something that's actually your career or can actually move you forward? Thank you very much.
All right. The first question for political party is for Sam, I guess, for Samson. I've also made an inquiry last week myself. Between now and the end of the year, I want to register as a member of a political party. I'm going to my local government to do that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And the reason why I'm doing that is this. Politics for me, let me answer that first question. Politics for me is that sometimes you are forced to eat what is served on the table. But I want to be in the kitchen where they cook the food that is served. Because in the last election, you are forced to choose between the candidates. But political party arrangement is the mechanism by which those candidates emerge. So we need to go back to where that thing happens so that we can decide what is served. And you don't have to really run for an office to make your impact in a political party. You can be a member of the political party. There are other ways to. There are people who are appointed as ministers, appointed as chairman of board. There are people who are appointed as commissioners and all of that, and you can make your, mark in varied ways. But it must be, and you know that being a member of a political party has some, legal implications as well. There are people who have been taken out of office because of issues they had at their political party level. So it's important to make it clear. So for instance, your documentation with your political party has to be intact. It has to be, so political party have made inquiries and I'm joining. And I'm not saying it to who was in the car? Somebody was in the car with me when I was, it was Timothy. Timothy was in the car with me when they were making that. I called somebody an INEC, a director in INEC, to explain to me, and he was giving me the explanation. The time has come for us to join. We will not run for office, but we will join. We'll join. Toxic environment. Sometimes what we call toxic environment may not be really toxic, and sometimes it may be toxic. So let me explain a few things. One is that when you come into any organization, try to observe patterns. Observe the patterns of how things happen. Two, there are some organizations that I personally don't work for as a person, no matter how big they are, no matter the remuneration. I'm talking about me. I'm not saying you should contemplate me. So for instance, I don't really like to work for a one-man business. Yes. So when I mean one-man business, if you put, let me give you an example. If you put a First Bank and you put a UBA side by side, I will not go for UBA. That's the point I'm making. Because it's really about one man. I can be sure of getting my way around a First Bank than I will do a UBA. From all observation, the guy knows who he wants and who he wants to work with and who he wants to put in various positions. You being sound might make you qualify, but you are still subject to certain decisions, and if the person doesn't like you, you are gone. There was a time in First Bank, I remember the chairman, Iboku Awosika, was accused of something and she was sacked. So Samuel, I can work with you, I will work with you, I will do the things you need to do. I'm just saying that I don't see, because the reason is because my work history has taught me certain lessons. Some of the places, because in some of those places you don't have an opinion, and if your opinion is too strong, you might look like you are challenging the status quo. And you need to understand the kind of personality you are. Get my point? So for some of us, we don't know how to be political about suggestions. But as we grow, we are learning. Are you understanding? There are some things that so Samson knows this better. Samson is a CEO. There are some things that there are decisions you make because they have to be made. It is not subject to emotions. The emotion. But somebody might think that you have taken a bad decision. But you see, when you're making decision as a leader in an organization, you are taking that decision based on the information available to you at that time and based on what you think is in the best interest of the organization. But in the process of making that decision, if you are dealing with somebody who has an overbearing influence over the organization, you run against the person. You are likely to run against the person. And in every organization where they see you as though your decision is always anti or gas decision, you are likely to be considered a rebel. You understand? Especially when you're that kind of person that when you drop your decision, you just drop it and go. You don't explain, and there's no filter. So it's difficult to say this. You get my point. It's difficult to say this. Sorry to say, like where you have the regimented way of making decisions, I will not likely survive. Because if it is white, some of us are just trained to say that, look, this thing is white. But can we look at the shade of white? Is it milk? But it's white. Let's all agree that it is white. Then we can start talking about the varied kind of white. So back to the issue of toxic environment. You need to know where the source is coming from. Is it coming from you as a person, or is it coming from? And again, let me tell you, take it from me. If you have 10 colleagues, and 8 or 9 of 8, because there's always one person on your side. If 8 of them are complaining about your attitude, if 8 of them are complaining that you are not a good person, you are not a good person. Did you hear what I said? If your colleagues, all your colleagues are complaining about you, say it's because they don't like me because I'm a Christian. It's not true. It's not true. Go and check. It's true that your attitude is bad. You cannot work in an organization where everybody hates you. You can't. And some people see those things as toxic environment. It's not. Maybe because your attitude and the way you make your decisions or the way you put things across is very dehumanizing, brutal, and all of that. Some of you, you don't even know how to correct your colleagues. You correct them openly. You understand what I'm trying to say? I've taught you how to correct people here before now, right? Taking people aside, talking to people, and all of that. You know, some of you, your response can be terrible. So if you do some of those things, people can hate you. So take note that you need to know the source of that toxic. Where is it coming from? Then lastly, some people claim to be in a toxic environment when what they are actually doing is incompetence. Right? If you are incompetent and you are always delivering things, you know, delivering your job poorly, you're always coming late to work. Whenever it's time to travel, you are the last person that they will have to wait for. They'll say, wait for her, she's coming, she's took taxi. You know, that kind of thing. We say we're going to do things together as a group, but every time you are the weak link. People will start having issues with you. And you cannot now translate issues as toxic environment. No, that's an issue with you. It's a different thing, you know, and all of that. But like I would always suggest, if you cannot continue to work in an environment, leave. Just leave the environment. Leave. So like I have your sanity, and then the people also can have their sanity. Labor laws allows us to resign. There's nowhere you say you want to resign, even military. Abi, you can leave now. There will be resign. I am not doing again. A friend of mine resigned from DSS. It took them 6 months to release him, but he still left. Because he was called, he wanted to focus on ministry, right? But he left. So you can leave, but there are conditions. So labor laws allow you to resign. You can, but don't cause problem. That's the point I'm making. Yeah. The last one, maybe we'll discuss this one. The work environment, what to do. Yes, I understand that there are no jobs and all of that, but that should not be the reason why you should take up something out of survival. I've also suggested, and I've had counseled with Christians, do not start a job with a survivor mentality. You can't recover from it. Are you understanding? Don't do a job because you need to survive. That's not the essence for work. Like if I say it might sound casual. First, it must be work that you like to do, something you wake up to and you like to do, right? Like for me, when people come to, a lot of people are like, I want to be a researcher, I want to be a monitoring and evaluation specialist, I want to be a knowledge management expert, I want to be a project management, I want to go to development space. Some of people are saying that because they see me. Huh? Somebody else say, I want to be traveling the way you are traveling. Today you're in this country, tomorrow you're in that country. I'm like, okay, That's not the job. The job the job is not traveling. That's not what I do for a living. Traveling is a perk. It's something that happens because I need to do my job. That you are seeing me from one country to another is not the job. So you don't just come and say you are recruited, take over Samuel's position and start traveling. Why is Samuel traveling? Why will I be talking and the Oyibo people will be listening to me? There must be something you are saying now. So take note of that. Survivor mentality. Don't approach your career through a survivor mentality. Still look for how to, and be adaptable, because career lines are changing. Tomorrow there are some jobs that can come up and all of that. And there is no job right now that does not require deep learning and reading and researching. Even if you want to be the best photographer, if you want to be the best, you need to see the kind of work that musicians put. I didn't know that musicians were doing hard work. There was this guy, what's this guy? This comedian that did a show recently in Abuja. Brain Jotter. Brain Jotter was in Abuja 1 month rehearsing for that show. He was sick. I knew somebody that knew him. He was sick. They had to take him to the hospital, inject him just to make him able to stand and do his show on one day. So I now say, to be a comedian is difficult like this. Yes. Because you are asking people to come and pay 2 million, 2.5 million for your table. So you need to give them value for their money. So there's nothing. See. That when we just. That's not it. I will just read it, just remind myself, refresh myself. I do it every day, because you don't know where and how people might come and where you need to talk. So I don't sometimes prepare for certain conversations, because my way of, the way of duty, and I can be asked at every time. Sometimes I call Samson up. Samson, I don't understand this interpretation or that the Supreme Court did. Can you please explain? And at once he starts explaining. That's because he's a subject matter expert. Imagine if he was not studying or reading. I've seen things that even Samson has brought clarification on TV and all of that. I'm like, even people that are top notch or over there or top at the top, they don't have this understanding. That's because you need to read your area. Those of you that you've chosen one area of study or the other, one area of career or the other, you must have certain books and resources in that area that you read about every day and every time. Is this clear? So I think I've answered that question. If there are other questions, we'll take that up later. Is there another question for Sam? Okay, Nisha. Yeah.
So my question is, when it comes to voting, there are 3 candidates.
To run for the House of Reps, you're actually 25 years is the age criteria. That's the Not Too Young to Run Act. And let me inform you that in the last elections, there were people who were between 25 and 29. There were about 20 of them who ran and won elections. The youngest female was 26. She's in the Kwara State House of Assembly. So he's not young. But what does he need to do, right? I'm happy that he's interested. And maybe that also ties to your question. Is first to identify a political party of choice and belong or register to be a member of the political party. And not just be a nominal member, but be an active member. Now, you have to pay your dues in a political party. And what it means, you need to work for the party. You need to contribute to the development of the party. And whatever I'm saying is, I'm not giving you a standard, I'm just giving you a guide. Because the political journey of people differs from people. Context may be different for your brother or for you as well. Now, the other thing is you need to be popular in your local community. That's one most important thing. And for some people, they become popular in their community before they join a political party. Others join a political party before they become popular. And they all have pros and cons. The thing with being popular, let your people know you. What it does is you become an asset to the political party. And I always tell people, the best thing to do is to negotiate from a place of strength. Let the parties be the one that will cut you, that will invite you to join them, because they see that what? You have political and electoral value that you add. So you're very popular. Parties want to win elections. Parties are looking for electable candidates. So if you become a force in that particular constituency, you are known, you are popular, people love you. Parties would want you to be on their ballot or on their list because it gives them chances, right? But then you also have to balance the fact that in some parties, especially the established parties, there are people who are on a queue. I'll give you a classic. I hope none of you comes from Lagos. If you come from Lagos, every elective seat that you know in Lagos, there are 5 to 10 people who are on the queue. And I'm saying this because we have studied the structure in Lagos and we're still studying it. Go and check, including appointive seats. And that's why when people talk about Tinubu, give it to that man. In terms of his political organizing and structure, it's brilliant. It's just that it also makes state capture easy, right? So you need to think about that. But you have to be, all politics is local. So the first thing is, where do you want to run? Under which constituency? Identify, and then start engaging in those constituencies to be popular. You must not start from a councillor position. Be ambitious about your targets, but also be intentional and be realistic. Sometimes I see young people from nowhere say they want to be governors of their states. My people, there is preparation. See, tell yourself the truth. And I want you to know that there are people who just run for office, not because they actually want to run or they want to win, but also is positioning. They want to position themselves. They want to have visibility. Some people just even want it as their title. So I laugh when I see And I'm not joking. There are people whose title is former aspirant, not candidate, former aspirant. But if you really mean business, you can start with anyone, but just be realistic about, the positions. But the last thing I would say is understand the politics of your local community. Spend time to understand the politics of local community. So things like zoning. There are constituencies that have they have a zoning formula. So if if the incumbent comes from this local government, the next person should come from the local government. So understand the zoning arrangement. So if it's not in your favor, accept it if you want to. If you want to disrupt it, then be ready to go the 9 yards, because it's not easy to actually disrupt those arrangements depending on the constituency. There are people who have done that, they've succeeded, but those ones are exceptional cases. Does that answer your question? I think someone asked a question about joining a political party. Just do your research. Every party has its own registration procedure. But all registration is done at the ward level. So you have to go to the ward, pay a certain amount, they'll give you a membership card, and then they just enlist you as a member of the political party. Is that clear? Okay. Which? Yes. My dear, I don't have any answer for you. If you have 3 options and you don't feel that, none of them represent, the question is, what did you do at the time the political parties were nominating their candidates? And this is why we need to be active in the parties, especially when candidate selection is done. For most times, there's a lot of delegate procurement because it's all commercialized. But if you're served with a fait accompli, in other words, if you're served with 3 people who you don't, just look for one of them. And if I'm going to make a choice, I will look for one who is more likely to listen to people and who is more likely to be available for people than any other. Right? And also one that is teachable, because he who can listen, can also learn. Does that make any sense? I see 2 hands. I'm going to take that quickly because I have to. Oh, wow, I see 3. Whoa. Because I don't want us to eat into the next session. Because let's take them all at once. No, he is asked. We've not heard. Okay. That's 4 now.
Registering at the ward. So in our climb, we live in a country that, let me just say, state of origin and where are you from, where is your father from, where is your mother from, is a very, very concern. It's a concern that we have to deal with. So in registration and the citizen issue and origins that we have in Nigeria, so is it possible, is there any legal perspective that comes with your registration at a ward level? Okay, by birth you are a citizen of a place by birth, and by origin, because this is Nigerian politics, any day you just come out that, okay, you want to run for office, they'll just open your doors here. They'll not tell you your father was from, then they'll now trace you to Ghana. They'll not trace you to Ghana. So is there any legal perspective about, okay, this is your state of origin, within that state you were giving birth to at a different local government, okay, what would be your perspective about strength, and where do you advise that, okay, you register? Yeah. Then my second question is about the queue that you mentioned. Mostly every state have that queue if you really look deep into the politics that is being played. So what would be your advice on how to manage the sycophancy, the cloud chasing and everything that comes with the whole local?
Okay, so just to quickly add to his question, we also have this issue when it comes to ladies going for political offices, where they say, okay, no, you have to do from your state of origin, or they say, no, it has to be from state you're married to. What's your comment on that?
Okay.
I'm going to forget these questions, so let me deal with this one. The point about there's actually no legal perspective on registering as a member of a political party. What is important is you get on the membership register of the party, right? So if you're from Ondo State and you want to register, if you reside in Abuja and you feel that, okay, you can make meaningful contribution to the party, you can actually register in Abuja and then subsequently transfer your register to your local government. Or you can go back to Ondo and register there. Now, if you're going to run for office, I will advise that you go back to that constituency where you're going to run and register there, because sometimes the parties can use that to exclude you. And there's that thing being said that, okay, how have you contributed to the development of your party in your local community? You don't even, in fact, they will say they don't know you. And when it comes to party registration, the word matters a lot. Is that clear? Yeah. And the other point about Q and cloud chasing, there's nothing you can do about it. That's all I can say. There's nothing you can do about it. The question is, when you look at yourself in the mirror, who are you? What do you want to achieve? And how are you going about this? Because at the end of the day, my people, it's an individual question that you must answer. It's personal to you. So you must always deal with the personal. And for women, there have been 3 prominent Nigerian women who have run for office and have won those elections on the basis of running from where their husbands come from. The first one is, what's her name? She's from Kaduna, but she ran from Binta, Senator Binta. Huh? So, no, she's not Araba. Senator Binta is Adamawa. No, Grace Bent. Grace Bent is from Adamawa, right? As a Binta is Gombe. Grace Bent is from Adamawa. Now, she is Yoruba, but she was married to a man from Adamawa. And she ran in Adamawa and was a senator from Adamawa. Binta Masi, she comes from Kaduna, but was married to someone from Gombe. She ran in Kaduna, won. She went to Gombe and still won as a senator, representing Gombe because her husband comes from there. These are outliers, right? But it tells you that it's possible. 2 things. The stars may align in your favor. And that's the political stars, that the contextual issues, you know, and God just makes them aligned. Secondly, is also how popular you are. And if you're here, you want to run for office, you've got to be popular in your community. I just detest it when young people say they want to run for office, but they are not putting the work in getting people. They are not even known in their constituency. They just sit in Abuja and say they are running for office. It doesn't work that way. Go and check all these people who have successfully traversed different waves of political expedition. These are people who invested in their local community, so they know them very well.
Okay, thank you very much. My question goes to Reverend Sam. Yes, I want to.
Yeah. So are these last 2 questions for me or for Reverend Sam? So we take this last 2.
Reverend Sam or him?
Okay. Hi. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So while you were speaking, you listed 4 lines of actions that we should all partake, the last of which was using your voice. I sort of wanted you to speak a bit more about that in practical terms, because I believe it's sort of like the least exercised action that we actually take as Nigerians. So in clear practical steps, how we can use our voice to hold people more accountable. Yeah.
So there are 3 things you can do. So one, I'll give a classic example. Since most of you reside in Abuja. So when the government decided they were going to charge 5%, do you remember the 5% for cybersecurity? Yes. A bill, right? They were going to charge 5%. And Nigerians screamed. Yes. Right? Now, let me connect it to the first point I made about being informed. I hope you know that as a citizen, you can write a letter to your representative in the National Assembly. You can actually do that. I hope you know that if your right is infringed upon, you can write a petition to the Public Petitions Committee in the National Assembly through your representative, and your matter will be discussed on the floor and action will be taken. The reason why some of you are looking at me as though I've said something strange, it's because our people keep perishing because of the lack of knowledge. Because these things are there. They work. Every day you see the National Assembly sit, they are considering motions and public petitions. So the practical way to make your voice heard, if you are any victim, you can use your pen to write a letter. The other challenge is, how will the letter get to the National Assembly? There are organizations that work in the National Assembly. You can even send the letter. But you know what technology has done? It has made letter forwarding very simple. Is to ask yourself, does that legislator have a Twitter or X account? Does he have a number that you can share via WhatsApp? Do you know someone that knows someone that knows someone that can get across to him? These are the ways to actually go about this because of the system. In other climes, these legislators will have emails. You can email them directly and you'll get a response from the office. But in our own climb, you know, we are in a different world. We do things differently. So you have to keep that engagement. So that's one way to make, a practical way to make your voice heard. The second, and I talked about it tangentially, is you can speak out. And you can get people to galvanize around issues. And you can speak about it. You can request for a meeting. Sometimes citizens don't understand the amount of power that they have. Who says you must come from the FCT to engage if you live in Amak, to engage the FCT Amak chairman? We have councillors here. Let's say the drainages in your community or wherever you are not working. In fact, that's taking it too far. Some of you live in estates. How are you using your voice in your own estate when things go wrong? Those things that's what we're talking about, is using your voice. Because you're experiencing leadership at that level. Some of you, when they call for estate meetings, you don't come for meetings. I can see you guys are exchanging. When they are discussing those issues, you're not there. But that's the closest place to make your voice heard, because some of those issues require action by policymakers. You have to amplify it to actually get policymakers to act. Because not everyone will have access to the National Assembly. Not everyone will have access to the president. But your own local leaders that you should hold to account, how are you using your voice, including in the church. When things are not going on rightly, or maybe you even have an idea that can help the church. Are you sharing those ideas? In your schools, in your workplace, those are places where you can use your voice. I hope this is practical enough. Okay. There's a last. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I just want to get it straight. Is politics really a career? If it's a career, in your earlier introduction, introductory statement, you said it is a calling. We are all called to be politicians, I think so. And I'm trying to figure it out if it's really a career that is open for everyone to venture into. Because sometimes I used to see younger guys say, I want to pursue politics. Like when they have like a pastor, he has a career path already, and from the look of things, he's tilting towards politics. Yeah. So I don't know whether, and if it's a career, how is it possible to balance it with your normal lifestyle or career? Thank you.
So I'll take this. So how do you profit from it?
Okay, so my question is, okay, I'm a lawyer, and being a lawyer has actually informed this question. While you were an undergraduate, as a student of law, did you see yourself doing the things you are doing today as an undergraduate studying law? Did you see yourself doing the things you are doing now? You know, because an average lawyer, you should be seeing yourself, okay, once you are done with school, okay, maybe you go into litigation, you'll be practicing, you know, all of that. So as an undergraduate, did you see yourself doing the things you are doing currently? Or if not, at what point, how did you navigate into this career path as into advocacy, development, and all of that? At what point, what prompted that decision? At what point did you experience that transition? Like, how did it happen, being a lawyer and all of that?
I don't know why Sam was laughing when you were asking that question. But to the point, the politics is not a career. Politics is a way of life. Now I'm complicating it. First, I started with being a calling. And I've said we are all called to be politicians. And politics is a way of life. Because as a human being, you continue to interact. And I'm trying as much as possible to help us deconstruct the notions that we have about politics. That politics, it's a game. Huh? And it's about running for office. It's about running the affairs of state. And I want to deconstruct that to make us appreciate what politics means to us as Christians, because the context for this discussion is Christianity. If I'm having this conversation with people outside the body of Christ, I'll be speaking differently. And I'll be saying things differently. But I'm speaking to help us appreciate. Politics is not a career. It's not a career, it's not a vocation. And it shouldn't be one. The kind of generation we want and we're trying to build is not a generation as when they ask you your career, you say you're a politician. No. Politics is what you do to serve. And I don't mean in a positional relationship with society. No. It's about what you do. That's why I say it's a way of life. And I'm inviting you, and I hope I'm doing this in the simplest form that I can. I'm inviting you who are here to see society different and your role in society differently. That you exist in society to transform society. And political participation is one way of transforming society. And I've talked about even participating in your estate is an informal form of political participation. That political participation is not just running for office or voting at elections. It is more than that. Because that is a vehicle. Political participation is a vehicle that helps us shine this light and be the salt that we have been called to be. Because in our human relationship with people, we exhibit what? The tenets, the values, and the ethos of justice, of kindness, of love, which is what we're being called to do. Does that make any sense? Yeah. So it's not, in my sense, it's not a vocation. Politics is not a job. And I always tell you, and you make a strong point as well, if you're going to go into politics, you must have a second address. And that address should be your primary address. People don't have jobs, and they are venturing into politics because they see it as jobs. That's why they will go in and all they will do is to steal. Because they know when they leave politics, there's nothing to fall back. And so if you're going to be in politics, please have a job before venturing into politics. Because there are people who are dying of frustration in politics. Because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's no guarantee that you'll be on the winning side. And you know there are no friends in politics. They're only interest in politics. And there's nothing that guarantees that your interest would always be protected. So it's always good to have a job. Some people, out of their own criminal inclinations, go into politics, make a lot of money, and use the money to set up businesses. And I don't think that's what we should do. Because when we go into politics, regardless of whatever space or field, you're going there to serve and you're going there to manifest. Because when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And when the wicked do, the people mourn. To your point about, I didn't know I was coming to answer a personal question. I've always done this. I've always done this. And I didn't think I was going to do this. And that's why I said that when I used the age. Yeah. By the way, I'm not yet 40, so don't think I'm an old man. just to make that point, I'm not yet 40. But I've been very privileged. Very, very privileged. To discover purpose at a very young age. Very, very young age. And so I was clear about, maybe not to the, the older you get, things become clearer. But I knew I was going to be a troublemaker. I knew that I knew that. But the older you get, you become more refined with your troubles. It becomes worse when you have a family. It becomes even worse when you start having children. So that's why I say make use of this time that you have. But I've always known that I will do this. For some people, it's different. Some people either discover this at a different age. It's just a function of grace and privilege. And the fact that you probably discover this at an older age does not make any difference. It means on God's timetable, that's when He wanted you to do this. And it doesn't matter the time. It's not about the duration. It's about the quality. There are people who lived only, maybe in terms of their years of impact, probably 5 years. From the time they discovered purpose and they made impact. That's the time God set for them. And so He sets a different time for everyone. I don't know for mine, I don't know for you, but you just have to discover it. But in terms of practical things, you need, as colleagues, if you identify purpose, you need to have senior colleagues that you share and you relate with. It does help a lot. It helps keep you in check. It also helps you provide clarity. and some call it mentors. It's good to have mentors, very good. But I'm a terrible mentor because I struggle with time. And time is a big problem for me because of the multiple things that I have to do. And I'll say this as part of my final thoughts. Who was this? You need to see, when you discover purpose, and you know that this is what God has called you to do, I beg you, pursue it with everything that you have. Because you don't have time. You don't have time. And that's one thing that in the last couple of months, if you're very sensitive to what's happening, you don't have time. And I'll use 2 examples. When Herbert Wigwe was going to die, when he died, he was going to die. I'm not sure he knew he was going to die. But when he died in that crash, he's one of the wealthiest people, right? But he didn't know he was going to go. It's not everyone that's privileged to know when they will go. But after he left, and we saw all the things he had done and the things he was doing, and the things he left undone. To those of us who are ordinary people, we'll be concerned. But for God, who knows? Maybe that's his own time. But look at all the things he achieved in the time that he was on earth. And so once you identify purpose, please, let no one deceive you. There's actually no time. And for those of you who are visionaries, note that you are still in the flesh even though you carry the spirit. And this flesh is weak. A time will come that the flesh will pave way. But just think about it. So if you have something in your heart that you want to achieve, anything, your prayer on a daily basis is to continue to ask God for grace to do this thing while you still have the strength to do it. Because there is no time. So when I see young people wasting away, not investing their time, like some of you, today is Saturday, you should have been doing something better with your time. Today is Saturday, maybe resting or doing something, but you've chosen to come here. It's a demonstration that you recognize the fierce urgency of now. So please, I beg you, you don't have time. Don't be deceived. Whether you're 25 or 29, I've just told you, someone at 26. Where is that sister? Your brother who is 25. Someone at 26 is already in the State House of Assembly legislating. So please note, you don't have time. Again, thank you, Sam. It's been a pleasure being here with you guys. And please enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
All right, so before he leaves, I want to say thank you to Samson. Thank you for coming to us today, and thank you for honoring my invite. Samson is one person that I don't take our friendship and brotherhood for granted, but we've come a long way, and perspective has sharpened perspective. So sometimes you are asking yourself, why is this person thinking the way he's thinking? It's because there are other people that you are dealing with who are helping to shape your perspective in life. When Cornelius asked that question, I laughed because I remember after I graduated from the University of Jos, I was told about the people holding the student union government, the University of Jos, and somebody mentioned that, yes, something. So some of these things he's doing, he had even used like the SUJ elections to test the waters, and so even his record at the University of Jos is still there. I remember when he was an undergraduate, back then, Echo Bank and NACA, they went around the university setting up youth-friendly centers, and they were looking for volunteers to manage it. And he presented himself, and that was how he became the one that managed the youth-friendly center of the University of Jos. I remember back then, like, okay, so what are we going to be doing? I don't know. But and there are one or two things I'm sure he can take from that experience. And again, there are things that can make you visible and make you popular. Are you understanding? It's just like I told you, you have opportunity to make a presentation before your top managers or your top CEOs or whatever they are. Don't lose that kind of chance. Samson is one of the young persons that we are proud of. You know, there was a time he won an award. What was that award again? The most influential youth. There's an award. Yeah, so he was on that award with people like Davido and one other person, and he came first, beating Davido to that award. I remember, and when they were giving him that award, he knelt down to collect it. Like, so he's a Christian, and I like the fact that he turns all of this back to God. He's a Christian, and he does not hide his Christian identity. He doesn't. Samson doesn't hide the fact that he's a Christian, and I love him for that, because a lot of people can begin to look like, no, he doesn't hide it. Thank you for coming. We will come again. We're just testing the ground with many things. We will come again with this time around. We will bring in people who are ready to go via for political office. People who want to contest elections and all of that, you know, and have some kind of conversation. Maybe not in this format, but again, we'll come again. I'm sure that you all are on Instagram. I will encourage you to follow Samson. Samson's page can be educating and encouraging as well. Okay, so this is your this second book. This one. Yeah, it's not out. So this is the first. Yes. So Eyes on the Ballot by Samson Itodo is not yet released. It's going to be coming out. This is a reflection of all his journey, you know, observing elections, you know, and all of that. And there's one other one, Beat the Odds. Like there was something they had to put together. So I would suggest that for office. So I would suggest that you all follow on Instagram. So can you bring out your phones? Except you're already following Samson. Bring out your phones. Look for Samson Itodo on Instagram. Look for Samson Itodo on Facebook. Look for Samson Itodo on LinkedIn and follow Samson. If you go back to some of his posts, I just want to take some time to just talk about it. If you go back to some of his posts, you will see some things that he writes, and they are quite educating. Like, thank you. Those things educate. Like, sometimes I go to read them to get educated myself, especially on things, you know. Okay, this was the appointment. We are delighted to announce the Kofi Annan. You don't know what this means. We are delighted to announce the appointment of Samson to the lawyer, blah, 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 as a member of the board of Kofi Annan and all of that. He writes a lot, he reads a lot, he researches a lot, and I always look forward to reading the things he writes. Whenever I go to his house, one of the things I look forward to is going away with one book. There's a particular book he has been asking for. He has been asking for that book. I now got the soft copy of that book and sent him the soft copy and kept the hard copy. So whenever he asks for the book, I'll say, I'll re-forward the soft copy again. Thank you so much. So we'll take, this is our break time, right? All right, so we'll take photograph and all of that with Samson. Then we'll take a break briefly and then we'll get to the last session. Thank you. All right, please let's come forward, take pictures.